Hey, this is Matt and I'm here with Louise, who's
Hello.
been at E3. I didn't go to E3, but I'm fine about it. And while you were there, you saw Dying Light 2,
Yes.
which is the sequel to the excellent zombie parkour game from a few years back. Things looking good?
Yeah, so I saw a behind closed doors demo at E3, so it meant that I wasn't hands-on with it, but Techland very much were, and they were actually playing it in front of us. Now, the first thing to talk about Dying Light 2, and it's really exciting because obviously you've got more zombies, which we'll talk about, we've got more parkour, which we'll also talk about, but for the first time, Techland's made a big thing about decision making. So the previous Dying Light was very much, it's all about the killing and the slicing and the dicing and the running, but the quests were just kind of pretty linear. But now what they've done is they've opened it up, they've made it so that every decision that you make actually matters, which is kind of horrible when I think about it. They've said that you'll actually only see 30% of the game the first time you play it through, which is kind of astonishing given the fact there's this huge map. They say it's 4 times bigger than their first Dying Light. It takes place in what they're calling the modern Dark Age, which is basically, it's 15 years after the first Dying Light, so we're kind of in like post-apocalyptic territory, so it's even more apocalyptic. Just when you thought that couldn't
Things
happen.
are bad. That's the
Things
short version.
are very bad, and basically what's happened is humans are now living in a place called the city, which is just this massive
Is it a
sprawling.
city?
It is a city, but it also looks like, you know, nature's sort of come back to
It looks
claim
weirdly
it.
beautiful, I
Yeah.
thought, surprisingly so.
Yeah, so nature's kind of come back. Humans are existing all in this giant settlement, and it's made up of 7 districts, which are all very, very different and apparently uncovered throughout the game. The section I saw was set in District 2, which is where we met our new hero, who is Aidan Caldwell, who is quite interesting in the fact that he is infected. He's a survivor, but he's also infected. Now, that's
Cool,
something
okay.
that we're going to need to control. I think a lot of people have the infection, but are somehow managing to control it, so it's now sort of 15 years on, and maybe humans have become to sort of counter it, as well as the monsters have evolved. So the first time we see Aidan, he's desperately sort of trying to control his infection before he then speaks to some faction leaders. So he is an outsider, so he works for, as that wonderful video game protagonist way, he works for multiple factions, so you can side with certain people or not. And the faction he's working with are basically like, you need to go to this place called the castle where there's a bad guy called the Colonel and he's holding all our water. So it's like, okay, sure. So you should go and turn on the water pumps. So the first thing that happens is these factions are sort of, they have a fight, which as factions do, they love having a fight. So we got to see the combat in action.
So is that kind of all going on around you as you're trying to get inside? Or?
Yeah, so basically you're in this sort of oddly, this bar pump thing, and he goes downstairs and they're like, you need to go and turn these things on, but then another faction group actually arrive. So before you even go anywhere to this place called the castle, this fight erupts. And it was
In a pub. I like that we still have bar fights.
Yeah,
even
of
in
course, there's still bar
post-apocalypse.
fights. It's just outside actually, but it's a chance to see, there's obviously very few guns because we're still 15 years on from the original, so there's not very much ammo left. So everything is just sort of the things you
that's
find.
interesting. That's
So it's
cool
lots
take.
of signs, and some of it's like electric though, so they've somehow got electricity going on, so you've got kind of electric weaponry and zapping things and hitting people with signs. And there's a cool thing of now if you dodge at the right time, there's this slow motion moment where you get to smack people. So I suppose I always find it interesting that it's first person and it's parkour, which is normally 2 things that don't really work together,
No.
and first person combat, so it feels really crunchy, it feels really in the moment. But what happened was a guy fell and you had to then make the decision of, you know, the fight was over and he's like, go on without me. And you either had to sort of decide, find this man a doctor or head to the castle. Now, obviously in this demo, the developer then was like, oh, we're going to go to the castle. So you automatically knew that something bad was going to happen to the guy that you didn't find the doctor for. But it was quite cool to know that that was an immediate decision. So Techland said that there are no manual saves anymore, so you're
Okay.
just going to have to live with your
That is
decisions.
stressful. How
Yeah.
do you feel about that as a
I'm
concept?
horrible. I mean, everyone gets that decision FOMO, right? So
Absolutely, yeah,
so
yeah.
the fact that you're only ever going to see 30% of the game, and Techland are saying rather than you having to play it 4 or 5 times, they're saying that obviously there's co-op as well, so that was a big deal in Dying Light, and you've got up to 4-player co-op.
So I can potentially ruin your choices. That would be good.
Yes, so they're suggesting that you come into my game to see how my game looks, and I come into your game to see how
You're
your
not coming
narrative
into
looks.
my game.
No, thanks so much. But anyway, so once the developer has decided not to save the man, with, you know, half the people in the demo are going, no, he's going to die, it's the first time you get to see the new parkour in action. So the free running was always really good, but basically what they've done now is they've made it slicker, they've made it faster. Everything you can kind of bounce off. There's amazing wall running going on. You've got this kind of rope launcher thing which you can then bundle up with a paraglider to run on the outside of buildings.
Cool.
All the environments are destructible at one point. So Aiden's running through and there's all these buildings that either have sort of humans in them or they've got monsters in them. So you're kind of dodging out of the way of the real humans, using door jams to sort of launch yourself forward. But the walls are destructible. So at one stage he like fires a zombie, kicks a zombie through a wall, which he then uses as a path and keeps on going. And another time, it's really fun, he uses a zombie as a sort of like a sponge to land on. So he just like fires himself out of the building and uses them as a sort of
I love the
soft
zombies are almost
landing.
completely incidental in this. They're
This
tools
bit-
to open doors or
Well,
walls.
they are until they're not, which is in the next bit. He falls into this like basement, so he's trying to keep an eye on this van that's fleeing, but he kind of misses a bit. I don't know whether if you had been better, it wouldn't have happened. I think it would. I think they just wanted to show it. So he fell down into an area which was this sort of basement level, where there were all of these infected, and he used a UV flare. And it's cool because there was UV in the first one, but now Aiden, because he's sort of suffering from the infection, he can use UV to build his immunity to the virus to become more human again, and also use it to distract and stun enemies to get out of the way. So if there's masses of them, you're probably not going to smash them all up. You kind of throw in a flare and then you get the hell out of dodge.
And presumably it has the same kind of punishing day-night cycle stuff that the first game had?
Well, we didn't. This was during the day that I saw this, but because
that was frightening, wasn't it?
Yeah,
They
go
when
mad
it got
at
dark,
night.
it was bad.
But this is when this was arriving in a dark basement, so it was almost arriving from the sort of the bright, sort of staggering slow zombies to in the darkness using a UV flare, everything staggering forward.
That's a cool touch.
But what continued was more of the sort of impact and decision-making stuff, because when he got to the van, you could either choose to kill the driver or hijack him. And thankfully he didn't kill the driver, because when you arrive at this sort of castle, which is where this nefarious colonel apparently lives, you wouldn't have known the code to get in, which was 3 honks of the horn. So if you hadn't known that, you would have to exactly. But you couldn't guess it, right? But if you would have then had to find another way in, and infiltration wouldn't have been as easy. So it's kind of moments like that every decision actually seems to matter, which does scare me in terms of decision FOMO.
Sounds like a
especially with
lot
those
of
saves.
pressure.
It's huge amounts of
cool
pressure.
idea.
I mean, after that he gets into the castle. It turns out the colonel might not be so nefarious after all. So do you still turn on the water pumps or do you not turn them on? He still turns them on, which is amazing because it then drains a whole area of the map, a whole new area of the map, which then becomes an exploration area. And we see this sort of scaly hand carry style, like shoving its way out of the ground, which has spikes on it, which means you've just unveiled a new monster type. But Techland's really clear in the fact that they're saying that you could have not done that. You could have not unflooded that area, so you could have not had that area of the map. So depending on the decisions you make, you'll have certain monsters, you'll have certain areas, you'll have certain people alive in your game, you'll have certain weapons. So all of your decisions and choices, it's kind of the theme of E3 with Cyberpunk and Watch Dogs and things. Choice matters, and that's kind of as scary as the monsters.
That's an amazing take on what was already a really brilliant game. When's it out?
It's out, although they're saying early 2020,
Of
so
course
it's
it's out in early 2020.
yet again another early 2020 game. So just clear your entire first 6 months. It'll be fine.
So that's everything we learned about Dying Light 2 at E3 2019. Let us know what you think of the new decision system in the comments below, drop us a like if you enjoyed this video, and don't forget to subscribe to Logitech G for more preview features just like this one. If you do already subscribe, remember to hit that notification bell so that you know exactly when our next video lands.